No role plays, no conference calls, no BS. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader. This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, I want to talk about an article I saw on LinkedIn by Sylvia Ola. It's called Keep Promoting the Wrong People. And I like this article a lot because it talks about something that we spoke about a few years ago, the idea of the Peter Principle, which has been around for 60 years almost now. This idea that if you keep promoting a person, eventually you'll get to the place where they are in over their head and not prepared to do their job. Because if you promote somebody based on being able to do the previous job well, then they go to the next level, whatever that is, and eventually they kind of you reach the level of where their capabilities are, and then they can't do it. And it's why in a lot of organizations you have a lot of people who end up not doing their job well because they're just simply one level or one role above where they should be. And if everybody just kind of moved down one notch, they would do that job, whatever the previous job is they had, really, really well. And it's been around for a long time. We've discussed it before, and this article kind of takes a different take on it when it comes to basically how to avoid that. Why do organizations keep promoting the wrong people, and how do they avoid it? I think it's a fantastic kind of take on how to avoid doing that, because it's a trap that I think a lot of organizations find themselves in.
Yeah, and it's a tough one because so many times we look at kind of career progression and promotions as the output of great leadership and great development and this type of thing. And
right.
Of course you should see promotions. Of course you should see career development. But there are very few times when the exact right person or people are prepared for the exact right job exactly when it opens. Like, it's such a rare thing that you're always kind of in this mix of making a decision. And sometimes it's great. I tell people all the time, like, as a leader, our role is to make sure that when a position opens, that we have multiple people prepared and ready for that role. And if there's nobody prepared and ready, then that's our fault as leaders, right? Like, our job is to get people prepared and ready and then make the decision. And if we know we've done our job right, that decision is really hard because you have multiple people that are capable and ready right now for this job. And now you're kind of refining the selection process, the decision making, their individual skills. What does the team need? But it's a very, very tough decision. If the decision is easy and it's just one person, then I believe we've not done our due diligence of preparing people for the job when it's opened. If we're struggling to pick somebody, then I also believe that's an opportunity from a leadership standpoint of, are people fully prepared? But I will be honest with you, that happens quite a bit. Like I said, it's rare when you're ready, when you've got people, when the job is open. It happens more often that you're kind of scratching your head trying to figure out, okay, for this job right now, who may be the closest, and what team is this, and how can they, do we think that they will have success, that type of thing. So I think that this is a good conversation for us to have.
Right, and when a lot of organizations do, when that happens, because you're right, the more common scenario is nobody is ready, but the position is open, as opposed to multiple people just sitting there twiddling their thumbs, ready to go and ready to cheer on whoever does get promoted, while going, I guess it's not my time yet. Yay, like, oh, maybe next time. That when it's the opposite thing, which is what happens most often. Oftentimes, the organization has a culture of talking about, what are the opportunities for advancement here? What are the opportunities for growth? It's one of the things people list as their most common reasons for leaving an organization, is that there is no room for movement, that the ceiling was too low, no opportunities for growth, no opportunities for promotion or advancement. And so organizations know this, and they have to talk about this. They have to talk about how many people were promoted over the last year or 2 years internally. Look at the people who have moved up in this organization versus, whenever there's an open spot, we bring somebody in from the outside, which doesn't feel as good if you're you're an internal person trying to move up within the organization. So if you talk about this as part of the value proposition of your employer brand, of upward mobility, then all of a sudden you've talked to the talk. Now you have to walk the walk. And you can only walk the walk in the right way if the people who you promote are actually ready for that role. If they're not ready for the role, but now you have dozens or hundreds or thousands of people looking at you going, who's even the people who aren't ready, even the people who know they aren't ready for it will be looking to you as the leader to watch, let's see who they promote versus if they bring somebody in from the outside. And that's what they're thinking. Okay, does what they talk about when it comes to promoting people from within, is what they do, does it match that? And the moment that you have a look at yourself in the mirror moment and say, you know what, I don't have anybody who is ready to promote from within this role, you have two options: to either hire from the outside or leave the role open. And depending on the role and depending on the organization, one of those two things will cause more damage than the other. And one of those two things will cause less damage than the other, but both will cause damage in with regard to comparing to promoting somebody from within right away because they were ready for it. And so there's a lot of kind of legwork that leaders and organizations need to do in order to avoid this. This isn't something where it's like you find yourself in the situation, here's how to avoid it. If you're in this situation, you already can't avoid it. You have to make one of those decisions to leave it open or to promote somebody who is not ready to be promoted or hire from the outside. So the work has to be done on this long in advance of needing a role to fill. And this article kind of goes through some of the ways that organizations can do this so that people, when they do get promoted, they are ready, and so that you can recognize people who are doing good work without necessarily saying, hey, it's time for you to get promoted, because your good work, your expertise, your abilities, whatever it is that you're doing might be worthy of accolades or something that isn't necessarily ready for promotion yet. And I think this is where a lot of leaders kind of have to, this is art, not science, when it comes to leading your people and making sure they understand this.
Yeah, and I think the heart of this article is saying that the third option is the most dangerous, which is actually promoting internally people that are not ready for the job.
It is the most dangerous.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Like that's exactly what they're kind of saying here is like, look, you can promote from external, or you can hire from external, you can leave a job open, or you can promote internally people that are not ready. And that is the most dangerous aspect. And I kind of I agree, because a part of leadership is not just getting people promoted to the next job, it's getting them promoted and having them be successful in the next role. And I think that is the thing that I think in the article kind of states, this is what the issue is now you find people in roles where they feel like they're miscast because they either, it was the next role that, the quote unquote that they should go do, or they were promoted too early and they didn't have the skill to be successful in that job. And now they're in a place where they're either failing, where they're making mistakes that could be career stallers or career enders, where they are where they're not able to kind of work at that level or lead teams at that level, which then kind of cascades to the team from a cultural standpoint. And I think that those are the things that that's the tough conversations to have. And that's to your point, these are things that you have to kind of build in over time with your team to talk about and to understand these moments of time. It's hard. I've been there. You've been there. I'm working really hard. I feel like I'm doing the work. I should be ready for this job. I watch other people do this job, and I think I can do it just as good as them or better. And then the job opens, and then you interview, and then you get told you're not ready yet, right? Or like we've gone with this other person. And it's a hard pill to swallow. It's really hard to think about all of this I'm putting into it, and I'm not ready yet. But then we also talk about trusting leaders. We talk about the decisions that leaders make. We talk about mentors and people in my life. And that was something that, for me, once I got a hold of some really great mentors, then I understood that they're not just making these decisions to cut my legs out from underneath me and not let me advance or be good about things. They're making this decision because they want me to be successful in the next role. And if I trust them, and if I know that they have my best intentions in mind, if I know that they want me to get promoted, if I know that they want me to be successful, when something pops up and it opens, I talk to them first. I don't just apply to things. I call a mentor, and I call them and I say, hey, here's what I see. What's going on? What do you think? And they know that we have a trusted relationship where they can say, hey, like, now's not the time. Like, not right now for this. And I say, okay, right? And if they have additional context, great. If they don't, I'm okay with that too, because I have a trusting relationship with somebody who has my best intentions in mind. That's a hard thing to do unless you have taken the time to build those relationships and have that trusting relationship with people that are in either a decision-making role where they're a part of this process, or they're really close to understanding what the role is and where you're at in your professional career. But like that to me is something that I had to learn. And then I understood it, and it's something that I do my absolute best to share with other people. It's like, I know that we're excited. I know that you want to move up. I know that you're working hard to get promoted, but these are things that need to be addressed. These are things that I need you to either show, to sharpen the skill on, to be able to role model. These are things that right now you can do that I want to be able to see, so that when you do get the opportunity, I can feel very confident that you are going to be successful in that role versus just having the role. And we've seen it, and we know people. We can name names around people that have gotten that promotion, and then something happened, and they either left by choice or not. And they made mistakes, and they created issues, and not because they're a bad person, not because they weren't highly successful in the role they were in before, simply because they were not prepared, they didn't have the skill set yet, the confidence, whatever it might be, to be able to do that job in a way that was successful.
Right, and there is this kind of added element that makes this process even more difficult, and that's that once this has happened a few times, people in your organization will start to believe that you don't get promoted when you're ready for a role. You get promoted when you've achieved excellence in your current role, and the expectation of the organization is that you get promoted and then learn the role as you're doing it. Because they look around themselves and they see people who were promoted who weren't ready to be promoted. You can tell that they struggle in their job, but they got promoted because that was the next level for them, the next step, the logical next step when it comes to promoting somebody. And they were very good at the previous job they had. They just weren't ready to be promoted, but they got promoted anyway. And you have enough examples of that around your organization, and then people start to believe that that's the way it is done. Rightfully so, right? That's how you should believe it if you're seeing it all around you. And then if you try to fix this situation where you want to get out of this cycle and stop doing this, and you start telling people, I'm sorry, you're not ready for the role yet, what they think to themselves is, why am I not ready when this person were promoted over the last 3 years? They are terrible at their role. They're struggling through it. They're okay at the role, but they make mistakes all the time. Like if they got it, I must be terrible if I'm not getting it, if these people are able to get it. So it's a tough cycle to get out of once you're in it, unless you are very clear with the idea that you're trying to get out of the cycle. But if you are very clear with that, then you're essentially saying, hey, we made a mistake by promoting these people that you see around them. And now what does it say to them when you've already promoted them? And now you're kind of thinking to yourself as a leader, maybe it wasn't the right time to promote this person. You can't vocalize that. And so again, it's a really, really tough cycle to get out of once you are in it. And the only way to do that is with what Sylvia says in these articles, these kind of steps you can take to kind of recognize people and give them things to shoot for that aren't necessarily a promotion, so that when it comes time to promote them, you can be 100% sure that they are ready. It's the old adage, do the job you want, not the job that you have. What goes along with that is you've already done the job that you have perfectly well. So you start taking on some of the responsibilities of the next step because you're wanting to show your leadership team or your whoever is the decision maker on promoting you. You want to show them that you're ready for that next step. If you fail or make a mistake while trying to do that, it's not career ending, because at the end of the day, it wasn't your job to begin with. You're trying to show that you can kind of stretch your role, grow outside whatever the current job responsibilities are. That's really difficult for a lot of people who are in this mindset of, no, I'm going to do the job I was paid for, not reach outside of that or try to do anything more on top of it. If you have an organization full of people who only want to do the job they were hired for and not stretch outside themselves and not attempt to do any of the responsibilities of the next step up, you will never have people who are ready to do that next step up. That's the whole idea, is you see them doing it first, and then you promote them because you know they can do it well. Good luck getting people who are ready for that if the culture and the mindset around your organization is, I'm only going to do exactly what I was hired to do and nothing else. If you want to see me do this next step, promote me first, then you can see what I will do. They don't work well when trying to solve this problem.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1 Minute Hack. But first, a few words from our sponsors.
All right, for this episode's 1 Minute Hack, here's what I want you to do. Understand that the right time to talk about this is long before you have a open available spot for people to move into. If you're talking about this when that is open, two things are going to happen. One, you've done it too late. And two, people are going to be thinking about what you're saying in the context of that open spot and how to move into that open spot. If you do it before any spots are open, when you're just trying to get people ready for them, they won't be distracted by that open role. And it's going to be just in the context of, how do I get myself ready for that role when the day comes that it does open up? So always be talking about these things in advance, not just when the spot opens up. And the way to talk about this is to recognize people who are doing the things that would be necessary to get those open spots when they happen. And it could be spread across your entire team. It's not one person who's constantly getting recognized. It's anybody, even if they're not necessarily a great employee, but if they do something great, recognize them in the moment and talk to your team about what that good performance looked like, how they did something well, what they brought to the team or to the organization that was a positive. Because the more examples you can show of what good looks like, the more kind of arrows in your quiver you're going to have for getting people to understand, hey, remember we talked about this and this and this and this and this when it comes to getting promoted. These are the things you have to do, and you're showing them kind of in action, not just in the ether. This is kind of what you should think about doing. The next thing I want you to do is, don't discount the value of a solid, even informal mentorship program for people who you think might be the kind of the next level, the next people to get promoted. Partner people up with each other, not problem employees that you assign somebody to so you don't deal with it yourself. An employee who's trying to learn and get better at something, find somebody who is considered great at that role and partner them up together so that you can see that person's leadership and mentorship style in action. It's a way to recognize that person for the great work that they're doing without giving them a formal promotion, because there isn't one necessarily available. It's amazing what you can see out of that person and their ability to lead people to make you more aware of whether or not they're ready to get promoted when the position does eventually open up.
Yeah, and I think too, if you are a decision maker in kind of career progression for people, that typically means that you have direct reports, and that you're working with these team members and people that are looking to get promoted. When you have the conversations with them, again, outside of the open job cycle, whether it's a development conversation, a touch base, whatever that might be, the power of asking questions to understand. Like, so what you were talking about, Chris, is like, here's the things you should clarify. Here's what you should talk about with the person. If you start that off when you have a conversation with somebody and say, okay, hey, Chris, let's talk about your career progression. Like, what is the next step for you? What do you envision as your next step here? Mm-hmm. What's that job? What's that thing? Okay, what's the timeline that you foresee as being prepared for that role? Okay, and like, again, I'm not telling you, you're telling me. This gives me an idea and understanding of how you see your readiness for the next role. I said, cool. What are the current strengths? Right, exactly. Yeah. So
2 years from now.
Right, whatever it might be, right? Like,
yeah.
What are your current strengths? What are the things that you do that have you prepared for that role? And then what are the things that you are wanting to work on, or that you feel might be blind spots potentially that you want to sharpen up before that role becomes available? And including them in the dialogue and asking the questions to then understand what they're looking to accomplish, what the next role is for them, and then helping them to build that plan that you're talking about. Well, let's be clear about it. So that if this is the role that you're looking to get into, let's talk about that job, right? Let's pull up the job description. Let's talk a little bit about this. Let's talk about what does that look like today. Let's talk about what the team might need, and basically just have a conversation about a job that does not yet exist, but allow there to be dialogue and allow that person to have more context. And then if you need to have conversations about readiness or time, like, you can have all of that and provide them with a really, really clear plan and commitments of what they want to do to get ready for that. And then that way, whenever the job does open, at least you have this kind of body of work that they've done. Or maybe they just said, you know what, I don't want to do all of that. Right. And so that it just helps to make sure that there is transparency in the process, that you're focused on what it is that they're looking to accomplish, and you're providing them with either tools or resources to help them get there.
This is so important to do in advance. Again, if I'm picturing myself in a conversation like this without a position available, and it's so much, it's freeing. Because you're not thinking about, oh, what am I supposed to say? What is the right answer? I want to be considered for this open role right now. I better say the right thing. It's impossible not to get in your own head like that if that's what you're trying to do. But if there's no job to begin with, it's just kind of talking about the potential future job that may open up 6 months or 2 years from now. It's so much easier to have an open conversation because you don't feel like you're taking a test. You feel like you're actually having a conversation with someone who, again, what you said at the very beginning, cares about your development. This is how those relationships start. If you can take those conversations seriously, you might find that the person you're talking to is the person that you go to when that role opens up and you go, hey, this just opened up. What do you think? And they'll give it to you straight. If you've had enough of these conversations with them, they'll say, now's not the time. Or, you know what? I think you're ready. You should go for it. You know, like, and you can trust that whatever they say is the right thing if you can have these conversations and really take them to heart, and see what the advice that they give you, see it in action as you kind of get better at these skills and get recognized for these skills over time. You'll find yourself becoming more and more ready for these roles.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.